Christine, remember when you were a kid and you thought that your career was going to be this like perfect straight line trajectory?
Oh my, yes. That is not at all what happened. It ended up being way more of a squiggle than I could have ever imagined. And I am so happy that I embraced all of the squiggles along the way.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Embrace the Squiggle podcast, where we continue to uncover the hidden gems of career journeys, one unfiltered squiggly adventure at a time. So we are Colleen.
And Christine.
And we are here with the fabulous Sara Haines. Hi, Sara.
Hi, Colleen. Hi, Christine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you today. We always start with figuring out how we found our guests. And I was so excited because back in it's probably like 2017 or so, Alec was he was a newborn, I think. So probably
He
right
would have
around
been.
then.
Yeah.
We were doing a conference at Smith College and I reached out to you. And I remember thinking, she's never going to respond to us. And not only did you respond, you were like, yes, I would love to come and be a keynote. And it started there and kept going. And you brought your
I
brother.
forgot I had kids at all, but yeah, anything to get back to Smith. And first of all, Smith is one of those things in my history that I'm so proud of. So anytime I get to be like dip my toe in that, I feel honored, and it's amazing.
It was so great to have you. And you were such a fantastic keynote that day. I remember so much of that day. But today we're really talking about careers. And so we always start with asking people, like, what did you think you were going to be, right? Like, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian at one point, a marine biologist, a lot of science. Wasn't my strength. I figured that out. Or I always wanted to perform comedy. Like I wanted to do like SNL, which everyone said they wanted to, but I love becoming characters. So sketch comedy, performance, those were the main things. But then I found myself as I kind of went into college doing what so many of us do, like what's the major that will be my backup? Like my mom and dad, rightly or wrong, were like, let's not be a music major or something. And I'm like I could get into a music but whatever. They were like, get a degree that you can fall back on. I get government. And then everyone around me wanted to be a lawyer. So there was a time where I actually thought, do I want to be a lawyer? So it kind of went all over the place, but my passions were always like animals and then teaching. Teaching was always, in fact, before I moved to New York City, I got into the Smith grad program for teaching because I thought, and I hugged my kitchen goodbye. Smith has the houses with the kitchen and said, see you next fall. I was so excited because I thought, you know what, that is a good linear path. I see what that looks like and I can do that.
I feel like we all start that way, right? We all start in this thing that we think we're going to have this like perfect linear path. We're going to get promotions and stay within that same job. And it never really works that way.
It's squiggly. It's always so squiggly. Yeah.
So you went to Smith, you ended up majoring in government, did you say?
Yep.
And what did you do after that? What was your first job?
Well, so when I got that degree, I also felt like as the type A people pleasing third of four children, I thought I've done everything right so far. I graduated, I played sports through my time at Smith because to me, that was a continuation of something going away from Iowa to Massachusetts. I thought every basketball court looks the same. They're regulated for a reason. Every volleyball court looks the same. So it became no longer the activity with my friends and achievement. It became my safe space of this all looks the same here as it does in Iowa, and this is familiar. So when I took my jersey off and graduated from college, I thought, now it's my turn. Now is the first time where there's not an expectation of what's next. I want to go for it, this performance thing, this acting. So I could I'm either going to move to New York City, whatever that means. By the way, I'm like so naive and I don't know what I was thinking. I'd come to New York the first time with Smith friends at 19 and like held my bag like that. I was petrified of everyone. Anything I knew about New York was from the movies because I had never been. And my mom's like, don't wear jewelry. And I'm like, Mom, I'm 19. I have no jewelry. Like, right. And by the way, this is in 1985. People wear their jewelry out these days. Like, so it was a whole mess of possibility, but I thought I'm teaching and staying at Smith or I'm going to New York. And I remember that nudging, nagging feeling that has returned many times since then of am I okay if I don't try? Am I okay with just going with the linear, safer route? Will I regret that? Because regret is always, to me, the scariest, heaviest load to carry. And so I went for it. And so when I got to New York, my mom and dad told me, like I wanted to get into the Page program. I'd found it at NBC. My mom's like, you can't survive on $10 an hour. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll see, and they never helped me. I came here. I didn't get the Page program right away. I got another like assistant job somewhere, got my own paychecks. I felt so empowered. It was the Page program that was game changing. It took me about 6 months to get into that program. And I'm lucky I got in at all, because that's the one I stopped the guy on the train. Do you remember that story?
Yes.
How I said, oh, and Colleen, I wouldn't have talked to you since the craziest thing. So since I would have spoken at Smith, wait, Christine, real recap. So I have nothing on my resume aside from Smith College that would be like impressive, but the people I was up against also went to places like Smith and had 4 internships. Some had communications degrees, journalism. I was up against the creme de la creme, and all of a sudden I looked like the slum. Like, you're not that impressive. I tried to write in, to call in. This was when you used paper resumes. I stopped a man well, first of all, I followed him for days from New Jersey. And each day I said, today I'm going to approach him, because he had an NBC commuter bag. And I knew these were commuter trains. So I was like, this guy gets in the building, I followed him and finally stopped him. And by the way, my approach was this: don't be scared. I'm from Iowa. I'm a 23-year-old woman in professional wear, worried that this commuter among thousands in Penn Station might be jarred by my presence.
Like, right?
He still remembers how I disarmed him. Don't worry. But he ended up giving my resume along. And without that internal pass along, I would not have been flagged for this job. Now, in 2020, pandemic starts, we moved to New Jersey. Colleen, I'm taking a walk on Christmas Day with all 3 kids and my husband. And I look up and I said, Gary Quinn, the guy from the train.
Wow.
Now, we've kept in touch over the years. Yeah. And he doesn't live in my town. I knew he was from Jersey because I stopped him on a commuter train. But he was there. He goes, he lives 40 minutes away from where we were walking. But he said it's his wife and this walking friend. He goes, we sometimes walk up here. And I was like, I just moved to this neighborhood 6 months ago. I started crying. It became emotional. I wanted him to meet my kids, and like my husband. Everyone that's ever heard me talk knows the guy on the train. But to run into him like that was actually like kismet gift of. He goes, don't worry, you come up in my speeches too.
Amazing.
Hopefully, of how to do it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that was the right way. It seemed a bit stalkerish at the time, but so that got me into the Page program, and the Page program became my launch because I didn't have internships. If you go to school in Massachusetts and want to see your parents in the summer, there's not a breadth of opportunities in the middle of Iowa. So I nannied, I waited tables, I did just traditional money making things, but it didn't make me super competitive with these more metropolitan areas in the Northeast. So I was up against a lot coming out here.
But you figured it out.
I turned to stalking.
Probably don't want to stalk people, and any listeners, right?
Yeah, I'm not encouraging anyone, but telling them you're from Iowa does work. So,
I mean, it definitely made you stand out and be different. There probably weren't a lot of Iowans going for these jobs.
That approach, he still remembers. He goes, you were very sweet. And it was, but I also never forgot him. And when I have little things to give back, so like we monitored tickets for audiences, but they were high demand tickets. Like some were Rosie O'Donnell, which you couldn't get in.
Right.
So I'd always reach out because he worked not in production or shows, but he worked in sports business side. So I'd write him, hey, Gary, just checking in. Just wanted you to know if you ever need help getting into, I can, because I wanted always to give back to him. And he said, you do know you don't owe me for the rest of your life. I literally opened the door and I was like, Gary, I don't forget people that help me.
That is great. I mean, that's a total life lesson too, right? Just keeping in touch with people.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. And I feel like I know what you get paid to do now. Probably half the people listening do, but what do you get paid to do now, Sara?
So now you could say my dream job in a lot of ways is I'm a host or co-host on The View, on ABC's The View. And after not making it in comedic acting, I'd veered into hosting and personality roles because it took my public speaking and added kind of the improv of unscripted thinking on your feet. It, relied a lot on my years at Smith and critical thinking and finding your voice and all the things. So about 15 years ago or so, I ebbed from, I'm probably not going to be on Saturday Night Live. I got to admit that. But I could take parts of all of these good feelings and find a better fit that's more realistic. And that's when I transitioned into more hosting and personality. And that's how I ended up actually in news divisions. People mistake me for a journalist, but I'm more of a storyteller.
I feel like you still should be able to get like at least a bit part on Saturday Night Live one of these
I'm
days.
not stopping because Colleen, everything I've ever said, and I'm not someone that believes, no shade. I love people that put things out into the universe and what is it, self-realization and the secret. I've never been that person, but I find that you have to be able to say it out loud if you have any shot, even in a place where someone maybe like yourself is judging you on that's not going to happen. But almost everything I said I wanted to do, for whatever universal reason, I got to do. My best friend still quotes, Sara, you were quoted in articles, I think back in the Smith alum magazine, saying, I want to be on a show like The View or like a Kelly and Regis and Kelly at the time. I got both of those, not the same,
Right.
but to know that somehow happened. So I was telling my husband the other day, there's even a CNN Heroes program that I said, I'd love to host that one day because the stories are all human interest and like beautiful stories. He's like, yeah, they're not going to ever have you host that. I mean, you're here. And I said, you know what, Max, I stopped saying that a long time ago because almost everything I've said, not because it's not even like you say it because you'll get it. It's you say it because you don't know if you don't know what the world will bring, but you got to keep straight on the things you want and you've got to be able to say it out loud.
There's power and clarity.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. There's just, and whether you believe in the universe or the wooiness or calling in this or that, when you're clear on what you want and you're able to articulate it to those that you're surrounded by, they're able to contribute. They're able to almost, potentially help you get to where you want.
Yes.
But when you're unsure, it just creates, it creates a fogginess for not just yourself, but those around you.
Well, Christine, one exercise I did while I was at Smith College that I've never forgotten ever is on the volleyball team. We had just done really well in the whatever, it's the conference. And we had kind of lost our mojo. And my coach, Bonnie May, brought in a sports psychologist to be with us. And whenever there was a volunteer, do we have a volunteer? These were my moments of performance. I didn't care what the next question was. Can you perform heart surgery? Yep, definitely. Like I have tracing that back to 14 years old. I'd raise my hand on anything just to get a moment. So I raise my hand and I come to the front and the sports psychologist said, I'm going to throw up a bunch of markers into the air and I need you to catch as many as you can. She threw up the markers and I caught 0. The next time she said, I'm going to throw these up and I want you to just catch the blue marker. And I caught the blue marker. That has become a call sign for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
It used to be on my, when you had a flip phone and it had just a screen with a saying,
yeah,
I'd say blue marker, blue marker. Blue marker has been my call sign for what's your clarity? What am I reaching for? Because we come in young, or at least I did. And I thought maybe at the fear of saying what I wanted, I still widen it, thinking more options. I'm open to a lot. Well, when you're open to a lot, you almost get nothing. So if you can't stop and start to hone in, and one thing an agent said to me way before I was marketable, I was a coordinator, and because all these producers were amazing, they said, I know you want to be performing and you act on the side. I'd audition, meet with my friend who's an agent just to ask the questions. I was like, done. I show up and I'm sitting in the room and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I love kids. And I'm like 1,000 markers in the air. And he said, okay, well, are you the e-babe? Can you go do an e-babe spot where you're on a Spain island in a bikini? I was like, oh yeah, I'm not really an eBay, like e-babe, that's not, okay, what else aren't you? And I started to hone in on, okay, I'm never going to sell the Spanish island in a bikini. Like I'm going to trip and Bridget Jones that shit. So I'm not doing that. But I had to hone in and find clarity, which you spoke to, Christine, because the next time I sat down, and this would have been about a year later, I kind of was ready for this agent meeting, still not making money. So they didn't want me, but I was like, he goes, well, tell me like a chair you could sit in. And I thought, I know my marker. And I tell him, I'd really love to be on The View or a show like Kelly and Regis. And he goes, well, those seats are taken. So what else do you want? And I was like, okay. So, but the point, the greater message was, I realized if you can't tell me what it is you want, and you can't tell yourself what it is you want, you're not there yet. Because you cast the markers out, you're going to catch none. If you don't know your blue marker, you're not going to catch it.
I feel like that's like the mic drop moment of the entire podcast there, right? Like what great advice for everybody, right? To kind of figure out what you want and hone in on it.
Well, and it's sometimes simpler because the creative field is a little different, but you know my brother, Colleen, and at times along the way, as he struggled, I remember buying one of those career books where you answer 800 questions and it tells you, and I'd say, Joe, are you at a desk in your head? Are you standing up? Are you in front of a computer or are you on a phone? What, like, literally think of every way your day could look. Are you a set designer who's constantly moving things? Do you direct people or do you take orders? Answer every question, because when you start to say, oh, I don't have the attention span for that, I don't like sitting. I remember talking with Joe. I'm like, Joe, you're a problem solver. From assisting someone to a household manager to so like, it's the asking, where do I see myself? Tomorrow I have my dream job. What does it look like in every regard? Is it a day job? Can I work an overnight shift? I did that. It doesn't work well for me. Delicate mental health, and that shot me over the side. So then I thought, okay, I do have boundaries. I'm not going to go for every marker. I need to find where my boundaries are. And I always tell my nieces and nephews, I say, also, everyone wants to know when you talk to them, what do you love about your job? Ask them what they don't like about their job and what they didn't get that they thought they would, what they were expecting. Because every job has that. When you say, you know, they're really strict on vacation time, you know, or they don't give you titles, but could you fight for another day off? Like, what does this environment look like? And does it best suit you for where you're at?
That's great. I mean, all of those questions are so important as you're trying to figure out what's next for yourself, right? And you're
Yeah.
making these pivots and moving along. And I also think as a mother, right, I found that those things also changed with kids and as the kids got older and now they're off at college now, which is mind blowing to me. And
Yeah.
right. And it feels totally different now too, right? They're off at
Yep.
college and I have a whole different set of kind of things that are important
Priorities
to
and
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's where
think,
you oh,
no,
sorry,
go ahead,
Sarah.
Christy.
Well, I was
Go.
just going to say, I think a lot of people lose sight that they can adapt as your life changes and ebbs and flows and next chapters and children grow and, all of these life experiences and life moments, there has to be that adaptability, and it's
Yep.
okay to pivot and it's okay to change. And it's okay to anchor into, different values, which all influence our careers, not
Yeah.
just our personal, our home life, but our professional lives as well.
There's a poem my brother showed me once about a reed in the wind, that if you don't bend, you'll break. And it talks about, as everything in us changes, why would our outlook and our priorities and our wants not change too? And I think about what I was willing to do at certain ages and how valuable time, for example, is. Like, I would meet or sit down with anyone that wanted to chat. I love talking. Then I had to say, wait, Sarah, you can want those things, but if prioritizing your time matters, you now have to change the list of what you're going to spend your time doing. I also think there's a flip side to this of all the things you want. My story ended up nicely, but looking back, there was a pivot I took that actually really rocked me. When I left NBC, where I'd grown up, and came to ABC, I'd been told at NBC, I was working with Kathie and Hoda, and I had some like really dream things. I went on air on that show, and then they'd say, we reverse produced what I wanted to go do. So what we said is that we called it They're in the City, but I got to skydive. I got to blow glass in Canada, not Vancouver, I think it was Toronto, but I did all these things. And that's me. Curiosity, like, let's just call it a segment. Had this great life, but I'd always wanted to do that hosting thing that I talked about from all those years ago. And when I check in, I thought there's an excitement building and adrenaline that I still haven't gotten that chance. And NBC essentially said it was time for me to, I was contract and ABC had talked to me and I said, I really want that shot. And I would have settled for a lot of things at this point. I'm comfortable in familiarity. I'm loyal. I'd been raised at that show. All I wanted was to fill in. Just give me a couple fill-ins. When shit hits the fan and no one shows up, just let me be that person. And my boss, and I actually appreciate this honesty. I'm not angry. She said, I don't see you in that chair. I see you in the field. You're great. I don't see you. And I came back to her and said, I disagree there, and this is why. And I tried to make my case. And she's like, I still just don't see it. We love you, Sara. We want you to stay. You'll continue doing this, but that's it. And I remember walking out of there and like feeling this like, oh my God, like they just told me, I now know what I need to do. Like, oh my God. And it was like a gut-wrenching feeling of they do love me. All the things I thought, they don't see it. This is when I'm going to have to believe in myself. And what I had to settle with is I may not be right. It's not like you fill in on a host national show and know if you can do it. People be like, are you sure you can do it? No, I'm not sure, but I think so. And really it's a sink or swim. Throw me in and we'll know pretty fast, like this. But I wasn't getting that chance. So I had to believe it. And I remember thinking this was another moment where I said, if I say that's okay, I'm accepting what they give me. If I think there's something there, I will regret it more turning a blind eye and not going for it. Now, what that cost me in time, and this could have ended two ways, is I came to ABC and probably cried for a year and a half. Max remembers this. I went into being a correspondent. They were giving me a bigger role. It was a weekend pop news anchor. And eventually, in my third year, I was getting invited to come on The View, but I didn't know that yet. I'm still in a news division. I cried. I didn't know where the bathroom was. I used to count the months and said, my own integrity won't let me quit before I hit the 6-month mark. This was I couldn't have stayed at NBC, but this was also not right for me. Cried. I remember celebrating in Brooklyn with drinks as I'd hit my 6-month mark, my year mark. It was not okay. And the reason I bring up this example is along the way, and it worked out, but a lot of that was timing, because I don't think it's always up to you, and it's not just wanting something or wishing. It's having done the work, wanting things, and timing and luck. It's a pie. It's like a shepherd's pie. But one thing I have told people is I have producers from NBC that have wanted to maybe make a move, because that lingering feeling of maybe I'm worth more, maybe I could get a better title. But one thing I always remind them of is, tell me what your day is going to look like and if you're okay. Because I left what I knew and it was so uncomfortable, but that the only way I feel okay right now is that it worked out. I would have walked away. And as my contract came up, I said to my husband, I think that my run is over. Like, this was fun. I went in and thanked them for the opportunity, but they were asking for me at The View because I'd filled in. And I said, if the offer is not The View, I am so grateful that you gave me this opportunity, but it's just not a fit for me. I was working weekends. I remember breastfeeding at 2:30 in the morning, breastfeeding or pumping, and then going to work and being there by 4. And my body, I started to get depressed, and I have battled depression before. Max remembers, he goes, if I could take those years back, and I go, but it paid off. He's like, yeah, but we didn't know that then. And sometimes it may not pay off. But that was such a directional moment for me that would have been, if that one offer weren't there, that would have been when I left. Because I thought there's 1,000 passions I have in my soul. I could still go do Ocean Conservancy. I could still go teach. Life is too short. I'm not going to stay crying every day. And that the producers, when we talk, I say, are you okay with the new group you'll go to coffee with? Are you okay that they don't know how good you are? So maybe you're not going to get that leniency on choosing your assignment. If you're ready for that, that's the risk. It could work out, but it may not. Are you going to cry every day like I did, or are you going to be okay? And so sometimes it's not getting what you want. It's knowing what serves you day to day that you're already getting that you might be taking for granted.
Sitting in the unknown.
Yeah.
Sitting in that uncomfortable, the discomfort, and not attaching to the outcome.
Yeah. And you have to,
Yeah.
because sometimes Max will say, but it worked out for you. I said, but that I remember the days that wasn't a guarantee. In fact, it was mostly unlikely that it would happen.
And it's tough because, right, there are only so many seats on The View, right? It's not like it's not like you were going for a job that there were tens of thousands of opportunities for.
No,
there's what, 6 of you?
There's well, when I was filling in, there were 8 or 9, but but I remember when, I mean, The View is The View. I sit here now as a View co-host saying, oh my God, it's The View. Like, I watched this show. So there's no part of me that takes for granted how few those seats are, how someone has to leave for a seat to open. Sometimes there's not room at the table.
Right.
And it's not because you're lesser than, you're not capable. It's opportunity and luck. And so none of that was a promise. But that is when I would have pivoted. And I sometimes daydream about where that would have taken me, because Krsitine, I believe you have to pivot and you have to bend, and there would have been another story to tell. There's not one right story. There's not only one right person in this world. Your branches could go 1,000 directions. Yeah. It's leaning into where you're going that matters.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You've done some fun and interesting things, right, along the way. I remember going to see the Strahan and Sara show, and it was when the Schitt's Creek staff, the Schitt's Creek staff were there. Not staff, cast.
The cast. Oh my gosh, you were there the day I couldn't stop crying. And I was pregnant, and I think I didn't know it, or did I know it? I don't even know.
I think you hadn't told people yet. I think you were pregnant with Sandra?
Caleb.
Yep.
Sandra and Alec were at The View. Caleb was at that show. And that was also, again, Krsitine, when you speak to sitting in the discomfort, taking that risk, because people, I look back at how the show didn't make it for 1,000 reasons, aside from the 4 name changes and the host changes and the the no investment in it, all the things. I wouldn't have been able to make a different decision. It's kind of like NBC. Someone dangles an opportunity and you have to go for it. But that was a really hard couple years when you hold on to a dream so tightly, you stop looking at it for what it is, that it's your dream. So you'll just close your eyes and pretend it's that, as it becomes something else and you change and it's not matching up. And finally you let go enough to say, this isn't what I wanted it to be. This isn't what I thought it'd be. I have to be able to walk away. But that's hard because it felt a little like failure. It felt like it was so humbling. It was the lowest professionally I've ever been. Like, did I fail? Rough things go with that, going for it. Because I now don't know if I could go back and relive those years, even though I love Michael and Keke.
And yet, there's all of those things, yet there's so much courage and bravery to walk away.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it wasn't even a choice, because I remember when the pandemic hit and they were like, you may not be coming back, I still wasn't letting go. And that's when my husband kind of had a coming to Jesus moment, where he said, Sara, look at what this show, where it's gone, what you are, who you are on this show. Like, you're yourself. But I had gone from being this vibrant sidekick that got to jump off windows, and then the mom bias kind of happened. So I had my babies, and I'm the same Sara. I mean, like, I'm doing handstands against the wall. I'm doing I just went down a water slide in the Bahamas that I told my husband, I go, can you watch all 3 for 1 second? I didn't do this last time I was here, and I need to get this one under my belt. Like, I'm that
Not
girl,
with the kids. Like, you were doing it for you.
For me. And
Love
so
it.
I'm like, I'm still me. And as you all know, do you have kids, Krsitine?
I don't know.
Okay. So I was you. And then I just had a child, but I was still me. I'm Sara. Like,
yes. Yeah.
But because I became a mom, what was interesting is I went from being that lively person that people pitched, my Today Show, NBC friends pitched, let her scale a window, or what is that when you come down a wall in New Jersey, one of the tallest buildings, in honor of Hoda's cancer. Jump out of a plane. We're going to do a jump out of the plane. We're going to learn how to stand up paddleboard. We're going to learn how to be a street musician. You name it. I was like, anything life presents, I'm ready to do. I'm not scared. I was scared, but the point was, I want to beat this scared, because I can. Some things you can't. I'm going to beat this. I bungee jumped in New Zealand. I did 1,000 things. I get this show, and then Keke comes along, who I love. I found that as I sat there, I didn't feel like a different person. But now, because of the way the show worked, I was going to be the mom. I was going to do family topics, momming topics, all things I love, but anything that was young and vibrant. And this was women and men doing this for me. And a lot of young people who are new in the business. Sara can do the mom thing. Sara can do this mom. I thought, but I want to do that. Like, why am I not doing that? You know, like it actually was so jarring because the same person's looking out of my eyes and the world's telling me they see something different. And while going through prenatal and postpartum depression, because that was the worst timed baby that we didn't time and didn't see coming, I'd cry in my dressing room. And I said, when did I become this old person? Like, I don't know why they look at me so different. No one pitched any fun segments, no one. And that hurt because I'm not mad at them. I was so blown away at what the world now saw me as on that show. And that's when my husband said, you don't even like the role you're playing. Why are you holding on to this? Like, there's nothing next. And I was like, oh shit. Like, by admitting that, I have to let go, and that opportunity for that dream, which it wasn't any of those things, I had to come to terms with. I went for it. I would go for it again today because you can't regret it. You had to go for it. And it was rough and it kind of sucked. And I hit a rock bottom, but I'm going to be better again eventually. And I was, but that took a while.
And I feel like on The View that you get to do both of those things, right? You still,
Yes.
I think, because last time we were there was last December and you were riding a scooter all over
I
the
get to
stage.
play. I'm back to, these are Sara things. So every time there's a toy to get on to, Sara will do it. Anytime, like we go to Disney, I love a roller coaster. Like they put Sara on it. I'm back to being who I am deep within me. My personality was always the same, but the role didn't always fit my strengths. And The View is both. I'm still that Smithy that wants to go toe to toe on gender roles in the family and why I'm changing my mind on this or what. But then I want the next segment to be me riding a horse off into the sun. Like I want to do all the things because all of us are that. And that's the beauty of The View is it shows the layers of your friends. It shows the people you'd have a glass of wine with. We want to have deep, enriching conversations. And then I might want to talk about Kim Kardashian. I don't know, like all in a day's work.
Never know where The View's going to take you.
You do not.
And you get to work with such amazing women, right, on that show.
Icons. Like Whoopi Goldberg to my right, Joy Behar to my left. What? And there are so many days where I laugh because I work really hard to make Joy laugh, because she's more, even though Whoopi's comedic, Joy doesn't stop. So it's unfiltered, nonstop. Sometimes she'll go, huh, that was funny. And then other times she'll really laugh. And I'm like, the desperation on my face is this, Joy, was it really funny? She's like, let it go. I told you it was funny. Like
getting your
those are my
script ready.
dreams.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Saturday Night Live. I feel it coming.
I'm not going to stop.
After this podcast, they'll be knocking.
Yeah.
I know. This is the one, guys. Say
This
it
is
loud
the
and
one.
proud.
I love it. Absolutely.
Start a
Absolutely.
hashtag Sara on SNL.
Make it happen.
Yes. Okay, so are you going to host SNL or you want to be on the cast?
I want to be in the cast. Like weirdly, some people,
fun.
when I put that out on my Instagram, ask me anything, and I say SNL, they're like, you'd be a great host. I was like, host, I'd settle for one sketch role. I just want to be in a funny sketch.
Excellent.
That was clear. That was clear. That was clarity. That was clarity.
That's my blue marker, Krsitine.
That is your blue marker. I love it. Oh my goodness. You have dropped so many amazing nuggets. I myself have a few that I'm going to walk away from today and chew on, let me tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really just beautiful. What if you had to leave one piece of advice for our listeners? What would it be?
Have grace with yourself. Treat yourself like you would your best friend. I'm an amazing best friend and I'm not good to myself. And I work on it all the time because I think as in my attempt to try to keep it, because I can go really long on things like that. But the biggest thing that I continue to work on is I heard that again from a page at NBC, so 20 years ago. Someone said, Sara, it was just a down day mentally. And she said, treat yourself like your best friend. And I thought, well, what does that look like? And I thought, you see your friend talking to themselves the way we talk to ourselves in our heads. You're not good enough. You're not talented. If you were better at this, you could do. You tell your friend, girl, you're killing it. Do you realize how many things you're balancing right now? Do you know we would come in hard and then like follow it with a frappuccino to say, treat yourself. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
We barely give ourselves 50% of that love and forgiveness on a day-to-day basis, not even a fraction. And if we could just do better at that, think about all we'd see in ourselves.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah. The self-compassion.
Yes. And I have an inner critical voice and I'm a Virgo and all the things, but I stop sometimes and you almost have to take yourself out of your body. And that's some of therapy too, which is like, there's a little girl in there. How would you feel if you were looking at your little girl self saying all these awful things? And would you say to any other human being but yourself, no, you wouldn't. And when I look at my girlfriends and not even just my girlfriends, my guy friends, I'm like, do you know how awesome this person is? And then I could rattle off their highlight reel because the reason I choose to be around them is I just think they're amazing. Someone thinks that about you. And yet we can't always see that. And that's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
so true, right? I mean, we all
Yeah.
have those points where it's just a struggle to see, when you're down in the dumps that,
Yeah.
the good things. So I love that advice.
Yeah. There's a little project coming up that I get to be a part of that I was a fan of before I got asked, and I can't wait to see it on its feet.
And your Instagram is blowing up.
Oh, I'm having so much fun on Instagram. Are you kidding me? Because what I say is I remember when, and this is again, I don't know if I told this story, Colleen and Smith, but there was a point where you're going to run into walls and you always hear about people that get in your way and you think, who does that for fun? Like we have enough in our lives. There were two women along my way that really, for no apparent reason, because you can't say, oh, it was jealousy or they were competing against you. If you knew their roles and who they were, it was almost like just flicking a bunny. Like, I just want to annoy you. I'm just going to. And there was a point where I was doing all this behind the scenes stuff because I said, I will do the work and I will get my friends to stay after hours to help me edit and shoot. One was an intern, one was a PA, and then me. By the way, the PA went on to be on air himself and a producer. The intern went on to be a producer and on air. The PA went on to be a producer and was an excellent Today Show producer. And then I'm here at The View. So it worked out having our hustle side project. But there was a point where the person that had taken over kind of the medium we were trying to put our stuff on out of the blue, we'd been doing it for a while. She said, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that anymore. And I was like, I don't understand. And they were like, well, because you're not promoting television, linear television, there's no point in having it on after the show. And I said, but it's additional content. And this is when YouTube was coming. And I said, it's kind of like, as an Iowan who'd never been in a studio till I became a page, I kind of want to see what Chris Brown looks like when he walks in. Does he walk in with 100 people? Is it like, reality TV was blowing up? I said, there's absolutely something here. No. So we thought, well, I'm not going to stop doing the work. Where can we put it? We went to the ad department and asked if they'd put it on the Facebook page, which had 200 friends. And that's when it wasn't 2000. I guess it would have been about 2008. And they were like, we'll take it. Thank you. They don't get original content. We'll totally take it. And I said, I don't care if 10 people are watching. I just want to do the work. And funny enough, that's how Keke Palmer built her career. She said, I'm not going to wait for a phone call. I'm going to do my stuff and you tell me if you like it. That's how I feel about Instagram. I want to interview people. I want to ask questions. I want to do goofy things. I don't care if 10 people watch it. I'm going to take my stuff somewhere else and do it anyway. And that's the beauty of our access right now. And the plus of technology is you don't need a middleman. You don't need to sell your soul to someone in between. Put it out there. And if people like it, they're going to come. If you build it, they will come. A little Iowa shout out.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And that's what people want. They want rawness and authenticity. Yeah. And
they want it. It's not like when I've worked in TV, there's two schools of thought. I've worked with people on air and lead producers who believe, let me look at what rates, and then we're going to do more of that. Kathie Lee Gifford said something one day. She said, that's not how you do it. You put out what you've got, and either people come or they don't. You can't change what you've got or what you don't have. And I remember thinking, that's it. That's it. Like, you don't have to come checking on me if you don't like what I have, but all I have is this fun stuff. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the reverse produce. It becomes very artificial and calculated and crappy. So, and I run into that a lot. It's one of the criticisms of TV where you see people that say, well, that doesn't rate. You're like, but it's good. Like, aren't we leaders? Like, let's set a trend, not follow one.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Christine, do you want to bring us down to our rapid fire fun questions?
I sure
I
can.
love a rapid fire.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Are you salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Excel or PowerPoint?
Excel.
Adventure or relaxing vacation?
Relaxing vacation.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
That's it. Those are good.
What a duo you are.
We're fun. We enjoy it.
We are fun.
This has been great. Sara, thank you so much for being our guest today. So where can they find you now? Where can they follow you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Christine, Colleen.
Oh,
you can find me at my name. I don't go on Twitter because it's a hellscape, but Instagram is at Sara Haines, and that's where I put the majority of my content. And on The View, sorry.
You know, that little thing that you do on the side every day.
That thing that pays the bills.
Fantastic. So you guys can all follow us on Embrace the Squiggle on Instagram and stay connected with me on LinkedIn, as well as Christine on LinkedIn for updates and additional insights. And don't forget to like and subscribe now and embark on a transformative journey of professional discovery. Is it time for you to add a little squiggle to your career? Join us every week to hear from another guest talk about how they embrace the squiggle.
Subscribe now and find your inspiration.